Aloha and welcome to Action Island. I am Gilles Gallant, and we are back for Monday Night Football between the Commanders and Packers. We start off week two, and I'm joined by Nick Giffen, Sean Koerner, and Grant Neiffer. And we've got some best bets for tonight's game. We were each going to have two bets that we're going to give out here in a second, and we're going to vote on those bets. And then by the end of the show, we'll have a four-leg same game parlay for you. But as we give out those bets, keep in mind in the chat, all of the links, quick slip links to be able to bet these are going to be dropped right in the chat so you can get these lines, get the best lines because these odds are going to move fast. Some of these props, once we give them out, the odds shift. They're not as bettable at that point. So use the links and then thank us later. But all right, so Monday Night Football, or pardon me, Thursday Night Football, Commanders, Packers. Grant, you're the guest here. You're the dong master, the home run king. Tell me, what are you betting for Thursday Night Football?
All right, so first one I got is Tucker Craft Anytime TD. You can get this around plus 200 to plus 240. I got it plus 240, but I would take it at pretty much any of those lines. Craft, like the entire Packers offense spreads the ball out so much, but a large part of that is they're mixing in like five wide receivers. None of the wide receivers are playing huge amount of snaps outside of Dobbs. Kraft is in there pretty much every single play. Like he played almost every single snap last week. He only got four targets, but that game was largely out of line. He still got a touchdown. Last year, he scored a touchdown at almost 50% clip in their games. He was the red zone targets leader last year. Commanders allow above average touchdowns to opposing offenses. Everything kind of points towards Kraft being incredibly undervalued at this price. And with this game being likely a close game, they should still be passing late, even being a 3-point favorite. Game script can do anything. But Kraft should get the volume here. He will get the volume in the red zone anytime that they can scheme a plan for him. So plus 240, way too high. Plus 200, still offering some decent value. And my second pick, Deebo Samuel's over 4.5 receptions. Deebo is one of the most dynamic players in football when he's healthy. Problem is, hasn't been healthy for a while. It wasn't that long ago they had 8 rushing touchdowns in a season. They're going to use him in the rushing game. They're going to get a lot of short area passes to try and have him do what he does in space, being as big and strong as fast as he is. Played 77% of snaps last week, had a 33% target share, excels versus zone, which the Packers should be running a decent amount of zone. Everything kind of points towards Deebo kind of being the guy right now. I mean, McLaurin still has to get more entrenched into this offense after missing for the majority of the preseason. I mean, he's been there for years, but they obviously switched things up with the addition of Deebo. So Deebo is kind of going to be the guy, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 12 plus targets in this spot, especially with them being a 3-point dog here. The game script should favor them passing later in the game. So 4.5, I got this at minus 118. I hit it all the way up to like minus 145. Seems way too low for a guy that just had 10 targets and 7 receptions in a game that was largely out of hand pretty much the entire game. The Giants were not really in it for the majority of the game. So 4.5, far too low, in my opinion.
I think the key thing I heard when you brought that up is the health, because you think of all the times with Debo and wanting to bet his touchdown, he'd probably be coming off of like a hamstring injury or, something along those lines, and you never feel great about it. And this is probably the healthiest he's ever going to be as a commander at this point. So I love the angle here for Debo Samuel. But Nick, Sean, we do have to take a vote. We're going to look at Tucker Kraft for an anytime touchdown with the Packers, or are we going to take Debo Samuel over 4.5 receptions? Let's vote. All right, guys, are we taking the resurgence of Debo Samuel, or are we going to take Tucker Kraft to get a touchdown in tonight's game? I voted for Debo. What did you guys do? All right, clean sweep for Debo. All right. All right. So Debo Samuel over 4.5 receptions is going to be the first leg of this same game parlay. Reminder though, Grant did also have Tucker Kraft for an anytime touchdown at plus 240. All right, let's move on to Sean Koerner. Koerner, you've already given out a bet already for this, but what do you like for this game tonight?
Yeah, so the first one, I'm going to go Jordan Love over 229 and a half passing yards, although it looks like it's creeping up a bit. Most sites are in the low 230s now. But I like this one. And like you mentioned earlier, I gave out Jordan Love over 29 and a half pass attempts. I have a big long write-up on that in our app in my pick notes. So read that if you want more info on it. But long story short, the Packers were extremely run heavy in the second half of last season. I suspected they were gonna, be a bit more pass heavy this year. Still, run heavy offense. But they drafted, Matthew Golden in the first round. Jordan Love's probably going to be even better this year. They can lean on him even more, and he was banged up at times last year. So um, they were actually very pass heavy in the first half of the Lions game. Love actually dropped back to pass 70% of the plays. It just was the second half. They were up so big, they just went ultra run heavy. So Love actually ended up having just one pass attempt in the fourth quarter. He had a pretty low passing output. He completed, 16 passes, 22 attempts, and 188 yards. So I think a lot of people are on his unders here. That was definitely the angle I had at the end of last year, but I think he's offering some sneaky value over here. I expect the Commanders' offense to generate more points than the Lions did last week, and kind of keep the foot on the gas at least for the fourth quarter for Love. Plus, he rarely scrambles, rarely takes sacks. So most of the time he drops back, it does result in a pass attempt, which offers him, a sneaky high floor in this market. And one thing I'll be looking for is Zach Tom, the right tackle's still a game time decision. If he's out, it's going to be tougher for Josh Jacobs to get going on the ground. Just even more reason for them to lean on Love a bit more in this matchup. So like his over 229 and a half passing yards here.
All right. So
And
Jordan
then
Love over 229 and a half. I love it. Especially because you already, it's kind of like a little mini double down too, because you already like the over on the pass attempts. But yeah, the yards didn't really move. So this is a good way to attack that if you weren't able to get the 29 and a half pass attempts line. Koerner, what's your second bet?
Yeah, my second one's Terry McLaurin under 4.5 receptions. Actually, cash on this one last week. It was one of the few bets I didn't step on a week one rake and lose last week. But this one, same logic applies this week. I expected him to get off to a bit of a slow start, just considering he held out for pretty much the entirety of camp and preseason. And we saw three receivers, struggle out of the gate in the same spot last year. Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and Brandon Ayuk. So, I wasn't shocked to see some rust there for him, especially a guy that, tends to just see downfield targets. You kind of want him to have that chemistry with Jayden Daniels heading into the season. I think this is the market to fade him on. I wouldn't touch his under receiving yards because if he does get a few catches, they're probably going for, explosive plays down the field. And plus, this kind of goes with what Grant was saying. They have Deebo Samuel in this offense to kind of absorb a lot of those easy targets underneath. So that's just more target competition for Terry this year than he had last year. And Terry himself was kind of due for some catch regression. He caught 70% of his targets last year, which is insane for someone that sees a ton of downfield looks. So his 12% catch rate over expected kind of signaled at some incoming aggression this year. So I like his under 4.5 receptions again this week, despite the potential trailing game script. I think a lot of those targets will go to Deebo anyway.
Yeah, the offseason contract extension always seems to trip up these wide receivers a little bit off the hop. So I think that's probably where we're going to see it as in week two right now with Terry McLaurin under 4.5 receptions coming from Sean Koerner. And his other bet is Jordan Love over 229 and a half passing yards. So Nick, Grant, let's take a vote. All right, gentlemen, did we go with Scary Terry or do we vote on Love? I went with Terry McLaurin. What did you guys do? I see a big heart and a love, and I see a Scary Terry. Okay, so Nick, you kind of got outvoted there, but that's okay. I know that you love love, and that's all right. So Terry McLaurin under 4.5 receptions will be the second leg for this four-leg same game parlay. Now, before we get to Nick Giffen, first up, if you want access to all of Action Pro projections, Make sure to sign up for an annual subscription to Action Pro. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Koerner and other members of the Action Analytics team, along with their anytime touchdown projections. And you'll also get access to our best spread, money line, and total bets, along with real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. Use code ISLAND20 at sign up. One more time, that's ISLAND20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, Nick, it's your turn, man. We've got Deebo Samuel over on the receptions, and we're fading Terry McLaurin on his receptions. What are you looking at for tonight?
Yep. As a Commanders fan, it pains me to do this, but give me Jaden Daniels to throw an interception tonight. Look, Jaden Daniels against certain coverages has struggled, and against certain other coverages has done really well. And those coverages are covers 2, 3, and 6, where he has really struggled. And the Green Bay Packers have last year and so far to start this year played cover 2, 3, and 6 at top 10 rates in the NFL. They're way above average in all three of those coverages. And they played those three coverages 86% of the time in week 1 versus Detroit, facing Jared Goff, another quarterback who, like Jaden Daniels, sliced up man coverage last year. So really focused heavily on zone coverage. And the Packers played it 70% of the time last year as well. So, we're probably going to see at least 70% covers 2, 3, and 6 from Green Bay here, likely even more. And Jaden Daniels, against covers 2, 3, and 6 last year, had a touchdown to interception ratio of 4 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He actually threw more picks than touchdowns against those coverages, whereas he was 27 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions against all other coverages. And considering he faced all other coverages more than half the time, that means his interception rate against cover 2, 3, and 6 was really high, considering he only faced them 48% of the time last year and just 46% of the time against the Giants in week 1. So he's going to really ramp up the difficult coverages for him that he faces. And, this is one of the more likely games for Jaden Daniels to be trailing in. I mean, the Commanders have had a lot of wins under Jaden Daniels at quarterback and a big blowout win in week 1, but they're 3.5-point dogs against Green Bay. And Green Bay had the 3rd most interceptions last year, highlighted by, of course, safety Xavier McKinney, who had 8 of the Packers' 17 interceptions. I wouldn't be surprised if Xavier McKinney gets an interception tonight.
Oh, okay. So do you think we could maybe look at the Xavier McKinney market too? Like maybe an INT? What are the odds for what we have for an Xavier McKinney interception tonight?
Yeah, I think I've seen a plus 550, a 6-1 out there. So looking pretty good on the odds there.
My ears perk up whenever you have an INT bet. So I'm always very curious on what you're doing with that. So, all right. So Jaden Daniels INT is the first bet that Nick Giffen likes. What is the second bet that you like, Dr. Nick?
Yeah, the second one, we're going to get a little creative here. And I'm going to go to a first quarter player prop. Several books have first quarter player props. And I'm going to take Green Bay Packers Josh Jacobs to have more than half a receiving yard, to get at least 1 receiving yard in the first quarter. You can get that around plus 144, plus 147. The Packers are extremely likely to start with the ball. They started with the ball in 17 of 19 games last year. And that's because, deferring is the thing most NFL coaches do, but LaFleur chooses to receive the ball when they win the coin toss. And every game since week 4 of last year, whenever the Packers won the toss, they chose to receive. And all but one time when their opponent won the toss, they chose to defer. Well, their opponent this time, Washington, has deferred 100% of the time under Dan Quinn. So I think it's 90% plus likely that Green Bay starts with the ball. Even if you want to be a little more conservative, it's probably at worst, a 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4 chance that Washington, or I should say Green Bay, starts with the ball here. So they're starting with the ball. That's why I like a first quarter bet. And as Sean mentioned, Green Bay came out pass heavy in week 1, 70% drop back rate for Jordan Love in the first half. And Josh Jacobs himself has cleared this half of receiving yard line in 9 of the 17 games since the start of last year, where Green Bay started with the ball. Another game, he got a reception, but it was for 0 yards as well. So, in 10 of the 17 games, he's caught a pass, at least 1 pass. He has a 36.2% of all of the targets that he gets come in the first quarter, and 29.8% of the receiving yards he gets come in the first quarter in those games. And his full game line is somewhere in that low mid double digit neighborhood there, 12 to 15 and a half or so, depending on the sports book. But, even if you take a quarter of the lowest line out there, which I think is 11 and a half, that's still nearly 3 yards. And again, he's getting usually over 25% of his yards in the first quarter. And we're getting half a yard as the line at significant plus odds, plus 144, plus 147. Plus, Jaden Reed played a really low snap count last week and no targets on that first drive. They're being really conservative with Jaden. Played a really low snap count. Going to save Jaden Reed for if it's closer later in the game, try to get him some, design plays in there. So I think that also just increases the likelihood these targets go to other players other than Jaden Reed as well.
Wow. What a great job, Nick. The information shared for Josh Jacobs right here to me, I think is amazing, especially from a coin toss standpoint, just knowing that the Packers tend to take the ball instead of defer the chances of them getting the ball here. I love this bet. I love both of your bets. So, all right, guys, we got to vote here. Josh Jacobs to have at least one receiving yard in the first quarter, or we're going to take Jaden Daniels for an interception. So, Sean, Grant, let's take a vote. All right, this was a tough one, Grant, Sean. I voted for the interception, but what did you guys do? Jacobs.
It correlates with my love perfectly. And anytime Nick gives out a bet that involves a coin toss, I'm automatically in.
That's what almost threw me off because I was like, no, there's no way I'm not going to take this interception bet. And then the Jacobs reasoning came out. And I was like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do here. So, all right. So just to let you know, we did end up voting for Jaden Daniels for an interception, but I just would like to say I think the group really likes that Josh Jacobs prop as well. So that is going to be the third leg of the same game parlay. So we have that now as Deebo Samuel over on his receptions, Terry McLaurin under on his receptions, and we're going to take Jaden Daniels for an interception. Now, I've got a couple touchdown bets that I want to give out for this game, but before we do, if you're on Twitter, we have a great new feature at Action Network. It's called Playbook. So if you see a bet from any of your favorite Action Network experts or anyone on gambling Twitter, you can now post and tag Playbook under that post, and our AI bot will build you a bet slip at the sportsbook of your choice. It's that simple. You don't have to try and find what menu the bets are under or all the different parlay legs. You can just use Playbook and build your bets the easy way. All right, so Grant already talked about Deebo Samuel as far as receptions, and I'm in complete agreement. I love Deebo Samuel for an anytime touchdown. Facing the Packers, they play a lot of zone. Last year, they were at a top 5 rate in week 1. Deebo just historically has done well versus zone defenses in his time. Yards per route run, the target share, they all see an increase versus zone. And yeah, like just the fact that we're getting him at the healthiest that he'll probably be this season. So like I like him so much, I'm probably going to ladder his 2 touchdowns as well at 18-1. But for an anytime touchdown at plus 200, Deebo Samuel is my favorite touchdown bet in this game. But on the Packers side, I did want to do a long shot. And I think Dontavian Wicks is the guy that we could consider. I'm seeing, plus 500 or better right now for an anytime touchdown. Only 2 targets in week 1, but 5 touchdowns last year. Had led the Packers with 8 end zone targets last season and was also leading the team in target share versus man coverage. And that's what the Commanders tend to play a lot more of now under Dan Quinn. So Dontavian Wicks at 5-1 or Deebo Samuel for an anytime touchdown at plus 200. Those are my 2 favorite touchdown bets for this game. So Nick, Grant, Sean, you got to take a vote. Are we going to throw in Deebo and make this a full Commanders parlay, or are we going to go really for the long shot and take Dontavian Wicks? Let's vote. All right, guys, how did we do? Are we going full Commanders or are we going full Galaxy Brain and taking Don Wick?
I got to go with my UVA boy.
Deebo.
Wicks, Deebo. All right, so we did have a 2-1 vote here on Deebo. So, Nick, is it just as simple as being UVA? Is there odds maybe that you like here with Wicks? I just want to know what's the reasoning here with the vote on Wicks?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it. Jaden Daniels struggles versus cover 2, 3, and 6. 4 touchdown passes all of last year, including the playoffs. And Green Bay is probably going to play that 80% of the time. So, unless it's a red zone or, a busted coverage or something, or a Hail Mary to win the game against Chicago, that kind of thing. I mean, Jaden Daniels really hasn't thrown touchdown passes much against this coverage that he's facing. So I'll take Wicks.
All right.
Nick,
Okay.
fun stat. Debo has run in 100% of his touchdowns this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Undeniable stat from Grant. Okay. All right. I want to recap this parlay. We have Deebo Samuel over 4.5 receptions. That's from Grant. We have Terry McLaurin under 4.5 receptions. That's from Sean Koerner. We have Jaden Daniels to throw an interception. That's from Nick Giffen. And then we have Deebo Samuel for an anytime touchdown from myself. And if you look right now at Bet365, that parlay is around 14 to 1. And if you don't have access to Bet365, it's still around 12 to 1 at DraftKings and BetMGM. So that's all for us. I want to thank you for watching Action Island for Packers Commanders. We're going to be back on Monday. We're going to do a Monday Night Football doubleheader kind of same game parlay for Texans, Buccaneers, and Chargers, Raiders. So on behalf of Nick Giffen, Sean Koerner, Grant Neiffer, I'm Gilles Gallant. Aloha and bon chance.